Hello and welcome to a look at The Lost Vikings for the Amiga, a game that was developed by Silicon and Synapse and released by Interplay. The setting for The Lost Vikings is that the three Vikings that are currently being presented by the game itself, Erik the Swift, Oluf the Stout and Baleog the Fierce, are participating in the yearly hunt, which is a competition of bravery, skill, and all that good stuff that takes place after the harvest to celebrate the harvest. And of course, once the hunt is completed, everyone's drinking and being merry and then going to bed. Little do they know that there is an individual zooming around the galaxy looking for life forms for his little zoo called Tomato, and he has set his eyes on the three Vikings, and while they are asleep he zaps them whatever on board his ship in order to take them away for his life forms zoo. Erik the Swift awakens and realizes that something is completely wrong, and off he trots, trying to locate his friends and, of course, finding the exit in order to progress to the next level. The three Vikings have different abilities. Erik the Swift can move very, very fast and he can jump. Oluf the Stout is a bit cumbersome, but he has a shield that can be used to block just about everything and anything. His main weakness is jumping enemies, which of course can jump over his shield. Baleog the Fierce is the warrior of the team. He can slash enemies with his sword, or he can use his bow and arrow to hit enemies from distances, but you can also use a set bow to activate switches. The three of them have to use their various abilities in combination in order to solve the puzzles of the different levels and locate the exit and carry on into subsequent levels. If we quickly go over the interface, there's not an awful lot of interface to cover, and thankfully the game is very, very good at tutorializing new mechanics as they show up. But at the top of the screen you have an icon for each of the three Vikings. The one that is in full color is the active Viking, and the two others will be grayed out. Next to the image of the Viking you have the inventory box, and the inventory can be accessed and items can be used and transferred between the different Vikings if the need arises. It is mainly transferring health objects like food. Underneath each portrait of the different Vikings are some dots, which is their hit points. If they bump into an enemy or they get shot by an enemy or something similar, they will lose a hit point, and there are, unfortunately, instant death mechanics in this game, but lost hit points can be restored by eating food. And you can also, from time to time, find shield items which will give the Viking, picking it up and using it, a blue hit point, which is basically an extra hit point. Let's just hit the technical side of things. From a graphical point of view, I think this game looks brilliant. Specifically the Vikings, you can definitely tell that Silicon and Synapse have taken a certain amount of care with those three individuals, and they are very well animated and they are very, very distinct, and they easily showcase the personalities they are supposed to have. Erik the Swift is very, very impatient. Baleog is very, very arrogant, and Oluf is just a happy chappy who likes to block stuff with his shield. Obviously, being aboard a spaceship is not going to be exactly the most exciting kind of stuff, but the graphics as a whole is working incredibly well, and it moves incredibly smoothly. Sound effects are incredibly satisfying. They are very fitting for the game, and they give you the information that sound effects should give you when you get hit, or you shoot stuff, or you activate something. And in that regard, there's nothing wrong with the sound effects at all. The music is another excellent part of this game. You could argue whether the music is particularly fitting for the three Vikings themselves, but the setting they interacting with definitely justifies this bit hip tune that goes on in the background, and the music in this game is excellent. There's no other way to describe it. You may not like it, but the quality is undeniable. When it comes to the controls, if the game has any weakness, it could potentially be in that regard. The controls themselves work fine. You can play the game with joystick or keyboard. Or should I say joystick and keyboard, or keyboard, because you need to make heavy use of the keyboard for the controls. If playing with the joystick, left right will control whatever Viking you are in control of, left and right, and the fire button will use their default ability. Erik will jump, Oluf will change the position of his shield from facing in front of him and being over his head, and Baleog will swing his sword. But the Vikings also have a secondary function which you have to activate with the D key. Erik will charge a wall and smack his face into it, hoping to break it. Baleog will fire off his bow, and Oluf seems to have been given the same ability for his secondary ability as for his primary, so he's left a bit behind. You need to use tab to enter the inventory, and then you move around with the joystick to select the item you want to use. Click the fire button to activate that item, and then you hit the E key to use it, or F key to transfer it. Buttons, switches, things like that has to be activated with the S key. So you can see that there is quite a bit of use of the keyboard. So you could be tempted to play with the keyboard because of having to have one hand on the keyboard anyway. But you are steering the Vikings by keyboard by using the numeric keypad, having 4 and 6 being left to right, 2 and 8 being down and up, and 0 being activate main ability and plus being activate secondary ability, so it can be a bit convoluted. As you can likely imagine, progressing further into the game means that you will get more obstacles that you have to find your way around. And something to be incredibly mindful of is the fact that the game requires you to reach the exit with all 3 Vikings being alive. So if you goof, you may as well hit the escape key and select yes to give up so you can restart the level. Reaching a new level will give you a password, and if you intend to play the game at a later time, I can highly recommend writing it down. Now, this kind of puzzle-solving gameplay kind of thing is not necessarily my most favorite type of gameplay, but I did find myself wanting to progress perhaps a little further, maybe even a little further, and maybe a touch further, and even a teensy-weensy little bit further, much to my own surprise, because the game is very, very enjoyable to play. And finally, at the back end of this video, a little bit of trivia that you may or may not be aware of. Silicon and Synapse changed their name at some point to Chaos Studios, but they weren't overly keen on that name, so they decided to change to the name they've been using ever since. Blizzard Entertainment. The guys behind Warcraft, World of Warcraft, Starcraft, Diablo, and other titles got their feet wet making games like this. And thankfully, as has been the case for all Blizzard games, you may not like them, but there's no denying that the quality of them is incredibly high. And this one is no exception. On that note, thanks for watching, take care, see you next time, bye bye for now.